Exactly. Well, why don't we start with the reigning defensive player of the year who's holding out, Nick
Yeah.
Bosa. I asked John Lynch, I said, is there any chance at all, because there was that Reddit report yesterday, is there any chance at all that you will trade Nick Bosa? And he gave me the shortest, most succinct answer. He's like, no. Next question. And Shanahan basically said the same thing. Um, do you think they're being forthright, or do you think that they just don't want to consider trading Nick Bosa, but they actually have already at least crossed that bridge with some other team?
Uh, I was the one that asked the Shanahan question, so you and I tag teamed the to make sure we took care of that and got it done. Because I think the reason we had to ask it was so that people understood that there is no way they are trading Nick Bosa.
Right.
If they trade Nick Bosa, there will be rioting. There will be no more fans coming to Levi's Stadium, and they will abandon this franchise. I mean, they got rid of DeForest Buckner, and people were ready to riot. Bosa's a different deal, and they're going to have to pay the ransom, and they're going to have to do whatever they got to do to get him in so that he's on a plane with them to Pittsburgh. And I believe in my whole heart and everything I've heard, he did not want to come to training camp. So he survived that.
Okay.
Go to the preseason, and then they started to engage in contract talks. So uh, as you get closer to the season, there's going to be these reports of they're getting closer. Yeah, because they're getting closer to the season. And he wants to play football and get paid a lot of money to do it. And the Niners, I think, some of these, holdouts that we've seen over the years, they can get pretty contentious. And Nick's a laid back guy, but he also a businessman and he knows his worth. And I think everybody realizes he's going to break the bank. And it's a matter of when does he want to come in. So, Larry, I'm guessing he's in there Monday for the first real practice. They may have done some real stuff today or tomorrow. But if Purdy's only throwing about 50% right now in practice and they're saving him for next week, then I don't see why they would rush Bosa in to get him going. But so I would imagine it's done early next week. I mean, TJ Watt came in, 2 or 3 days? Well, he was there, but he signed 2 or 3 days before the Steelers home opener in 2021. So I think there's a precedent. I think Nick's going to get his money. The Niners are aware of that, and they're just going to have to pay it. So and make it fair. It's like he may be asking too much, but they're going to have to compromise.
My first theory was that they didn't want him in camp because they're pretty thin there. They've lost Ebukam, Amenahue, Jordan Willis. The depth behind him is not nearly as good, in my opinion. I just didn't think they wanted him there until about the 20th, but now it's the 30th, and now I think they would like to have him there.
Mhm.
You've been covering this team for a lot of years. I mean, not far enough back to remember Fred Dean, but Fred Dean did hold out with the Chargers, get traded to the Niners, stepped right into the regular season. I forget what week it was, like week 8, week 6, and had 4 sacks against the Dallas Cowboys at Candlestick. What's the impact of this on Bosa? How much time do you think he actually needs to get ready to play his game?
Well, Fred Dean also held out in '84, and they won the
Well,
Super
maybe,
Bowl that year too.
yeah. Well, maybe I'm confusing
No,
the 2
you're right. He
years.
held out from the Chargers in '81. Then they traded him to the Niners. Then he
And
came
I
to.
could have swore his first game he went off.
He
He
did.
went
He
off.
did.
Yeah.
So Bosa will go off, right?
Well, I mean, do
I mean, look.
defensive ends need a lot? I mean, it's a wide 9, get up the field, go kind of a defense.
But he's a different defensive end. This guy, I don't think I've ever seen anybody. Started covering the team in 2000, right? I don't think I've ever seen a player attack their craft with such perfection, and he's maniacal about his body than anybody. I mean, he is. I have nobody's concerned about what shape he's going to come in, right? Like Nick Bosa has no body fat.
Right.
He reported last year in better shape than ever and had the best season ever with 18 and a half sacks. And if he got an extra month of rest rather than be at camp, well, maybe that'll benefit him down come December and January when they really need him to come through too.
You've been covering this team a long time. What's the impact of a long holdout? Is there any impact at all? Is there any
Well,
impact on the team, his teammates, on him,
I
or is
think
it just
no.
negligible?
I mean, look, it's a different personality, right? If Fred Warner wasn't there, there would be this void of this energy on defense. If George Kittle was not there, who's the spirit animal on the offense? Bosa's just a different guy in terms of people at practice watch him and learn, right? Not just reporters, but the other defensive ends will watch him. And that's the impact, I think, is like they've lost some, like, Drake Jackson says it's, the guy has all the answers. Well, it's time for these guys to do work right now, anyhow, and listen to their coaches. And then, Nick, over the last couple of years, has taken on a little bit more of a leadership role and speaking to the team the night before games, and has very dry wit. I mean, he is, of all the people you talk to in sports, he has such a dry, simplistic wit about him that it's just like, but there's also this, it's full of confidence. And I wouldn't say it's cockiness. It's just, he knows he's damn good and he can say what he needs to say. And I'm not just talking about when he was a rookie and calling out Baker Mayfield, but there's just every time you talk to him, there's some nugget that you'll learn or he'll give you some insight. And it's not trying to find a catchy quote to get content or something, but I love talking to him. I think he's great. Like last year, I sat down preseason, I think in camp, and we had a one-on-one interview for our NFL preview magazine. And just he's easy to talk to. I mean, he looks like he's a man of few words, but he's incredibly smart when it comes to football. So, him not being here, it's not like he's not learning what's going to go on in Steve Wilkes' defense. It's still playing the wide nine, like he said. And it's like, get upfield, get after the guy, and be aware that they're probably going to either chip you or try to throw a pass over you, suck you in. And like, he's played in the NFL long enough to know what to expect. And that's why he's the defensive player of the year.
Yeah, he's a very special player for sure. What do you think the holdup is? Do you think do you think he wants an absurd amount of guaranteed money? Is it possible, Cam, that he wants the entire deal guaranteed?
I don't know, but I would imagine that, yes, he wants to have the most guaranteed money than anybody, right? I mean, and Aaron Donald kind of set this outlier deal where it's only a 3-year deal, like over $32 million. But if the Niners are balking at it, they have to get over it and realize that that was there's inflation. Bosa's the reigning player of the year. That it's going to cost a lot of money. So yeah, I would imagine it's always about the money, right? It's not like, here's the thing. Does he want to go play somewhere else? I don't think that's the case, because I think Nick wants to win a championship. He's seen his brother Joey make a lot of money and play with the Chargers, but not advance in the playoffs.
Right.
Nick's tasted the playoffs, and he knows that the 49ers they should be the favorite to at least win the NFC. And if they're going to pay you that money, why would you want to go somewhere? It's not like he's going to reunite with his brother on the Chargers. He's not going to stay in Miami. And the Niners, I think that's why we also talked today, just made sure that they will not consider trading him. Could you imagine that they trade Trey Lance and Nick Bosa within a week? There's no chance.
It's unprecedented,
so
by the way.
That's great that we can get past that. And he'll be in the next week, right? And then life goes on, and he better get after Kenny Pickett and get a couple sacks, because I think that Steelers team is going to be sneaky hard to beat.
Do you think, you've been covering Kyle and John probably longer than I have. Do you think they get annoyed by that question, or do you think that they like putting that to bed?
No, they know what's coming. I mean, John especially is so media savvy, and Kyle's transparent, extremely more so than any coach I've ever covered. Although last week was probably a hiccup with the whole Trey Lance number 2 quarterback stuff, but that's another story. I think that they know how the media works in terms of what people are interested in. And it's not like they have to say, we will never trade somebody. This is Nick Bosa. It's a different thing. Like any other person on the team, they'd say, hey, everybody's open for trade. They've always said that. Anybody's available in a trade. Well, Brock Purdy's not, Christian McCaffrey's not, Trent Williams not, George Kittle's not, Fred Warner's not, and Nick Bosa definitely is not, because this team is set up to win the Super Bowl. And they're not set up just for this year. We talked about the window closing or whatever when camp started. Justin Smith said something like that in 2013, I believe, or 2013 or 14 in the offseason. And it kind of like woke me up going, man, that's right. A lot of these guys are old. The Niners have a wave of talent where they got a few years. I don't think this is it. And if they don't do well, Shanahan's not out the door. I think ownership has full faith in Kyle and John to continue this as long as they're happy doing it here.